break it down. The history of Iran. Iran is not a Muslim country, nor have they ever been a Muslim country. This is really important to know. Before 1979, Iran was not ran by an Islamic Republic. Okay, even back it up before that. Since Iran was a thing, Iran is Persia. And Persia was founded by King Cyrus. King Cyrus the Great. That's in secular history recognized as creating the Persian Empire. In Iranian and Persian history is recognized as creating the Persian Empire. And in Jewish and biblical history is recognized as the king that created the Persian Empire. King Cyrus was a friend of the Jews. King Cyrus led the Jews from captivity to the Babylonian Empire and set them free and allowed them to go free. The Jews love King Cyrus, the Persian king. If you go throughout Israel, they all talk about Cyrus all the time, the Persian king. Persia knows that history as well. The whole world does, outside of indoctrinated people who just started getting their education from a couple of universities in the last 20 years. Every single historian for the last 6,000 years knows the history of King Cyrus, the Persians, and the Jews. Okay, so fast forward, Persia, you have to understand, Persians are not Arabs. Arabs are not Persians. That's very important to understand because Islam came thousands of years after Persia already existed, right? And after all the nations in the Middle East had already existed. But the problem is this, that Muhammad, if you know about Islam, then you know that Muhammad wrote the Quran. Muhammad, who was born 500 years after Jesus Christ, and who visited Jerusalem and read the Torah before he ever wrote the Quran, and said out of his own mouth that he thought that he was demon-possessed. That's a real thing, not making up. He actually said that. And that he would foam at the mouth. He thought he was possessed by a demon when he would hide in the caves. Got a group of men and then created this religion, created Islam, and he claimed that the Jews and the Christians had gotten the real history of Abraham wrong, and that when the Bible said it was Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that it was really Abraham, Ishmael. It was really Ishmael and not Isaac. And then created an entire book, the Quran, that promoted what Muhammad claimed was the real narrative, that Ishmael had been the chosen seed, and that this is what God was actually saying about that storyline with Ishmael, and he wrote the Quran. Before Islam came around, Arabs were mostly polytheistic. They're not monotheistic. Monotheism was regarded pretty much in all of civilizations, almost universally, was only a Jewish and then a Christian concept. But all other civilizations, Europe, Roman, Greek, pagan, Egyptian, Persian, Arabic, all other civilizations regarded polytheism, multiple gods. The Arabs were no different. When Muhammad came around and he said, no, it actually is monotheistic after reading the Torah, but it's Ishmael, not Isaac, he went and picked one of 300 Arabic gods to name his God in the Quran after. And he chose Allah, the god of the moon god. That's where you get Allah from. That's the reason why the symbol for Islam is a crescent moon with a star, because it's the god of the moon is who Allah is. Okay? Then Muhammad goes and he gets his ragtag band of terrorists, quite literally, and he goes across the Middle East and he goes across modern-day Iraq, modern-day Middle East, and he begins to kill and murder all of his dissenters or anybody that refuses to accept Islam as the one world true religion. They go and they rape women. They murder men, steal women, rape women, and molest children. And they have many wives. They believe in what's that word? Polylyminous? I don't even know how to say it. Relationships. They have many wives. Poly something or other. I know polytheism's many. Poly always means many. If you didn't know, Poly is the prefix that always means many. Mono is the prefix that always means one. So polygamy, that's what it is. Polygamy is one relationship. Polygamy, many relationships. Monotheism, one God. Polytheism, many gods. So they believe in multiple wives, but not multiple husbands, of course. And then Muhammad gets married to a 13-year-old girl who he consecrates the marriage by sexual intercourse. That's how you consecrate it. So he molests a 13-year-old child and then makes her his wife. And that's the history of the so-called prophet of Islam. Then they go on to militarily take over the entire Middle East. At that point, modern day Afghanistan and Iraq, at that point, in around when Muhammad was around, they were actually considered, they were not Muslim nations. A lot of the Middle East was actually, there was a big Christian influence in a lot of the Middle East. And Islam came in and took over all that. Okay. So, fast forward. Now, Muhammad, when he says that Ishmael was the chosen one, Muhammad means that Arabs are the chosen people of God instead of Jews. That's quite frankly what Ishmael is over Isaac and the Jews. The Jews came out of Isaac, the Arabs came out of Ishmael. So he's basically Islam, and Muhammad preaches Arabic supremacy, obviously. Well, that's important to know, because then you also have to know that Persia and the Persians are not Arabic. They're not Arabs. So they aren't classified as being under Ishmael in the eyes of Islam or Muhammad, or in the eyes of Persians. Persia doesn't classify itself or group itself with Arabs. They're a totally different group of people. So in 1979, the Islamic Republic comes in and it takes over Iran, which is Persia. Except that here's a couple of myths that most people don't know about the 1979 Islamic Revolution because of propagandized nonsense. Number one, that at the time that Islam took over Iran, Iran was not a Muslim country. Number two is that it was not an organic movement within inside of Iran. That was not a movement that came up because of Iranian people. That was a color revolution that was created by communists and Islamists. Actually, if you look at it a little bit differently, if you go and do some history, you'll see that at that time, right, 1979, we're in the 60s and the 70s. This is right before Reagan comes onto the scene, and the world is in a Cold War and has been for 20 years. USSR versus the United States of America. So these two communists and capitalists are fighting across the globe for influence across the whole world. That's where you got the Vietnam War from. That was a battle between communists and capitalists. That's where you got Korea from. The Korean War between communists and capitalists ever since World War II concluded up until the 80s. When Ronald Reagan came around and the Berlin Wall fell, it was always a constant battle between communists and capitalists for control over the world. Every section of the world was a battle between the Soviet Union and the United States of America over, is this going to be a communist or a capitalist country? The Korean War got split in half, North Korea communist, South Korea capitalist, same for Vietnam, so on and so forth. And then China becomes a communist country. Okay, so while Russia's the Soviet Union You could get super deep into Russian history. There's so much there. It's crazy. It's a very intriguing story how they went from a czar to communism. It's crazy. It's really weird. It's really crazy. And if you go and look at it, Russia invaded Afghanistan. That's real history of the Middle East. A lot of people don't know because for whatever reason, they're just not teaching this in schools anymore. But all my historians understand that Russia invaded Afghanistan, okay? So what happened with Iran was that the United States of America, after World War II, developed a foothold in the Middle East because of a new Jewish state that had not been there previously, but had been there thousands of years before the fact with the Jewish people. And because of the Holocaust and 6 million Jews being murdered by Nazi Germany and Adolf Hitler, and because of the Dead Sea Scrolls found by a little young child that was playing with a ball and knocked a ball into a cave that knocked over some vases that broke open and found some scrolls inside, discovered that in fact that the Jewish people had absolute historical relevance and roots inside of the Middle East, and that Israel was a country that existed at one time. Inside those Dead Sea Scrolls was an entire copy of the Bible, the Torah, the Old Testament, and the New Testament, one-to-one copy, with a book of Enoch that was also included, and various others that were written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and proved that the modern Bible had not been mistranslated because archaeological evidence called it 2,000 years old, and it was a one-to-one copy of the Bible that we have today. That's the thing that a lot of people use to prove that the Bible has not been mistranslated over 2,000 years. As a result of that archaeological evidence, which is widely accepted by all archaeologists, atheists, Christian, Jewish, whatever it may be, Hindus and Buddhists and everything else, Israel, they said, okay, this is your nation. They brought Israel back. The Jews came back to the Middle East and they created the state of Israel in 1948. So now, since Israel, which is a capitalist country, the Jewish state, which has history because of Judeo-Christianity, Christianity coming out of Judaism, and America being a Christian nation, Israel and America became allies and have been very close friends. Now, as a result of that, the United States of America has a foothold. If you're a communist and you're the USSR, you say that the United States of America has a foothold in the Middle East. So now we have to get our foothold in the Middle East too, just like with Asia. So they invade Afghanistan, and then they also orchestrate the Islamic Revolution in Iran in 1979, where communists, USSR, and Islamists who get along because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Islam, you don't like the Jews. We don't like the capitalist Americans. The Jews and Americans are friends because of Judeo-Christianity. So communists and Islam, we could get along to try to perpetuate our agendas. We'll invade Afghanistan. I'll help you overthrow Iran. You turn into Islamic Republic and you become a friend of communism and Soviet Union Russia. And that's how it actually happened. That's actually what happened. So it created an Islamic Revolution over the Persian people, even though the majority of Persians were not Muslims. And it was not an organic revolution within Iran, and Iran did not want to become a Muslim country. The Shah of Iran at that time, who's the king of Iran, they had a monarchy before the Islamic Republic, propagandized by people that wanted an Islamic Republic in Iran. It was claimed that he was a dictator, although the people of Iran never seemed to feel that way. And when he fled, did he flee to a dictatorship country? Did he flee to Russia? No, he didn't flee to Russia.